Greetings, everyone. Once again, it's Motam Wanidzi, and today the teaching I'm about to give is going to be in the current classical Bible regarding does God take pleasure in the Torah, so what is known as the Old Testament, or the Gospel, so what is known as the New Testament. So for that, we shall go into the current classical Bible. But before I begin, I would like to thank Loba, once again, the only and unique creator, to have allowed us to know the truth in this time, in this era. So be it. So without any further ado, we're going to be sharing the teaching that was given by Zullah San, the only and unique, the only teacher in this time. So for that, we shall go in Matthew 24:24 in the current classical Bible. It says this: "For false Messiah and false prophet will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect." So here in this verse, in the current classical Bible, the Christ is giving warning that false prophet will come, false fake saviors will show up and claim to be the Christ and perform great miracle, great signs to deceive people, so to deceive the people and to bring them in the false doctrine, in the anti-truth, so in the lies. And he says here, if possible, even the elect. So there is an elect few, there's an elect that won't be deceived by those false prophets, that know the truth, that will be saved. We know that currently there's many so-called books. There is so-called books of the truth, or holy books, and so on, that claims to be the word of God. So, and there's many religions, but we know that those books, there's a lot of contradictions in them. So one book may say A, the other book may say B. So they're not all in agreement, but many of them claim to be from God, claim to be the word of God. So each religions, or fragment of religion, or sect, or so-called way, is claiming to have the truth, and they are all fighting. Each other. And in the current classical Bible, when we see the Torah, what they call the Old Testament, there's many passages in the book that contradict not only itself, but also contradict what is known as the New Testament, so the Gospel. So there is a disagreement in the same book. So that's why some so-called Christians are going to focus mainly on the New Testament. But others, they will still read what happened before. But they're going to say, oh no, what happened before was a shadow of the things to come. It was only previously. That was the old alliance. And for some people, the New Testament, so what they will claim the New Testament, the Torah, the Gospel, is the light. So it's what is, and the old one is no longer relevant. But for some people, even still today, they still believe in the Torah, and they still follow what the Torah prescribes and what the Torah dictates. Because you have to understand that the Torah has influenced many other religions as well. Not only Judaism, but even other religions inspired, meaning copied and took influence from the Torah to have their own book, to write their own books, translate and change a lot of things. So the Torah has influenced a lot of religion, a lot of so-called holy book, but we know that there's still mistakes in those books. So in so-called religious books, I would say religious books. So, but nevertheless, even though there's many contradictions, many errors in those religious books, we have to understand that the Creator exists. And even in the current classical Bible, it says this in James 2:19, you say you have faith, comma, for you believe that there is one God, period. Good for you. Even the demons believe this, and they tremble in terror. So here in the current classical Bible, it says that even the demons believe that there is a God, and they tremble. But is it because they believe in God, according to the current classical Bible, that they will be saved? No. So we have to understand that the faith is not everything. So the faith that there is a God is not what saves a person. We have to understand that it is the faith and the deeds. That's why when we say, does God approve the gospel and the Torah, we have to understand that what spirit or what are the deeds that the Torah has influenced and what are the deeds that the gospel has influenced according to the current classical Bible. We know that history has been changed, modified. Archaeologists and scientists, even in history books, they've tried to falsify history and changed what happened. So they've changed a lot of things. They've tried to erase history, a great portion of history. And that's why many people are in confusion regarding what is the true history of mankind, of humanity, of the man. What is the origin of the black man? What is the origin of the other races? Nevertheless, in this teaching here, we're going to see a little bit of the differences between the Torah and the gospel. In Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 15, in the New International Version, it says this: the Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among you, comma. So here, when it says the Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me, who is speaking, according to the current classical Bible, is Moses. So it says here that the Lord will raise up a prophet like Moses in the future. Raise up, will. So that's a future. From your fellow Israelites. So it will be in Israel. From the fellow Israelites. And who are the Israelites? Who are they? Are the Israel, the current Israelites we see, are those who claim to be Israelites? Is it them that this relates to? But we know that nevertheless, in the Torah, for many people, many people think that they are the one who have brought up the scriptures, who have written the scriptures, and Moses for them is an Israelite. But we have to understand that when in the current classical Bible, in the Torah, they talk about Adam and Eve, they talk about Moses, those names that are given are those names, the true names that those people who have accomplished those deeds had, and were they a falsification of their history? Did people come and change their names, change their places of birth, change changed their history? That's the question we have to ask. And we have to answer to see if the Moses, that was his name at his time, and if indeed he was an Israelite or a Jew, and a Jew that those Jews that claim to be Jews today. But nevertheless, he says here that Moses, after him, there will be a prophet like him. So from his fellow brothers. And he says, you must listen to him here, period. English Standard Version, the Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among you, from your brothers. It is to him you shall listen. So Moses is saying, according to the current day Bible, that a prophet will be raised up and you shall listen to him. And who is that prophet? If we go in John 1:45, it says this: Philip found Nathanael and told him, we have found the one Moses wrote about in the law. So the law is the Torah, is the scriptures, the so-called Old Testament, and about whom the prophet also wrote, Yehoshua of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. Aramaic Bible in plain English. Philippus found Nathanael and said to him, we have found him of whom Moses wrote in the written law and in the prophet. It is Yehoshua bar Joseph from Nazareth. And in Deuteronomy 18:18, it says this: I will raise up for them a prophet like you from among their fellow Israelites, and I will put my word in his mouth. He will tell them everything I command him. Verse 19, I myself will call to account anyone who does not listen to my words, that the prophet speaks in my name. So here, in the Torah, in the so-called Old Testament, it says that God, that Lord, will put his word in that prophet, and that prophet will speak in his name. In Deuteronomy 18:20, but a prophet who presumes to speak in my name anything I have not commanded, or a prophet who speaks in the name of other gods, it is to be put to death. And in John 4:25, he says this: the woman said, I know the Messiah, called Christ, is coming. When he comes, he will explain everything to us. English Standard Version, the woman said to him, I know that Messiah is coming, he who is called Christ. When he comes, he will tell us all things. So, the Christ will tell them everything, teach them everything. And we have to understand that he will also give the apostles and his disciples the mission to spread his words. John 4:26. Then the Christ declared, I, the one speaking to you, I am he. John 12:49. For I did not speak on my own, but the Father who sent me commanded me to say all that I have spoken. So, now we shall see a little bit of the differences between then what the Christ in the current gospel has said and what the Torah has said to do regarding the law. For that, if we go in Psalms 143 verse 12, it says this: Because of your love for me, comma. So this is David. He says, because of your love for me, comma, kill my enemies and destroy all my oppressors, comma, for I am your servant. But in Matthew 5, verse 44, it says this, but I tell you, comma, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, comma. So, in Psalms 143, David is asking that his enemies be murdered, for them to be killed. And we know that David was a servant of God according to the current classical Bible. And in Matthew 5:44, the Christ said, but I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. But David didn't do that. He didn't pray for his enemy. He didn't love his enemies or pray for them who were persecuting him. But he was asking for judgment. He was asking for retribution. He was asking for a sentence. He was asking for punishment to be dealt on his oppressors, to be dealt on his enemies. In Luke 6:25, he says this, but to you who are listening, I say, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you. But David wasn't doing good. He was asking for judgment. In Leviticus 20, verse 10, he says this, if a man commits adultery with another man's wife, with the wife of his neighbor, both the adulterer and the adulteress are to be put to death, period. John 8:5. In the law, Moses commanded us to stone such woman. So that was regarding the woman who committed adultery. Now, what do you say? Question mark. So they were asking because they knew the law that, according to the current classical Bible, that Moses has given them. And in that law, if a woman were to commit adultery, they were both, the woman and the man, to be put to death. And they're asking then the Christ, what do you say? In verse 7, it says this, when they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her, period. So, in this verse, the Christ did not approve the murder of that woman. Didn't approve for that woman to be put to death. Didn't approve that the adulterer, so that woman who was an adulterer, that her sentencing be to be put to death. And in Exodus chapter 20, verse 13, it says, you shall not murder, period. And we know in Numbers 23, verse 19, God is not human that he should lie. Not a human being that he should change his mind. Does he speak and then not act? Question mark. Does he promise and not fulfill? So here he says that God does not change his mind. So if God says in Exodus through Moses, through his law, you shall not murder, he's not going to change his mind. It's not going to change after. So the notion of, okay, in the old days, stoning was correct. That means God approved stoning according to some people. That's their argument. They're going to say that that's the law, that stoning people to death was okay. That was the law. That was the recommendation that God has given. Now, if he has given that recommendation, he's not going to change his mind later on and says, oh no, I said to stone, but then no longer do that. Correct? Because in Numbers 23:19, God is not human that he should lie, not a human being that he should change his mind. So he doesn't change his mind. So here, according to the Bible, it says God has a mind. So that's already you seeing that who they are describing, who they are representing, the way they are framing. Is it the Creator? But nevertheless, according to the current classical Bible, he does not change his mind. And in Jeremiah chapter 18, verse 23, but you, Lord, know all their plots to kill me. Do not forgive their crimes or blot out their sins from your sight. Let them be overthrown before you. Deal with them in the time of your anger. So here Jeremiah was also asking that his enemies be dealt with. In Nehemiah 4 verse 5, do not cover up their guilt or blot out their sins from your sight, for they have thrown insults in the face of the builders. In Psalms 109:14, may the iniquity of his father be remembered before the Lord. May the sins of his mother never be blotted out. Deuteronomy chapter 19 verse 21, show no pity, life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. Matthew 5:33 and 5:38. You have heard in the law that says the punishment must match the injury, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Verse 40, but I say, do not resist an evil person. If someone slaps you on the right cheek, offer the other cheek also. So we see the differences. We see that the spirit that was guiding the Torah, that was saying tooth for tooth, and the spirit that was guiding the people who have written the gospel, the current classical Bible, in the New Testament, so-called New Testament, it's not the same. They're different because it was at different eras. It was a different state of mind when they were writing those books. But some gonna claim that it was the same spirit, but that it was the same God, that it was the same doctrine. But there's many differences. Many differences. If there are the so-called prophets of the Old Testament, that means what is a prophet? A prophet is somebody that has the spirit, that prophesies, that sees spiritual things, that is guided, that is not talking for himself, is talking on behalf of an higher power, an higher being, or a higher, let's say, an entity. But why then, if that's the case, what they have said previously is no longer valid currently? Does that mean that the people or the entity or the angels or the God that were guiding them has changed his mind, did not see the future, did not see the justice, did not see the future, did not see how he will be perceived? Question mark. In 2 Kings 1:12, if I am a man of God, Elijah replied, may fire come down from heaven and consume you and your 50 men. Then the fire of God fell from heaven and consumed him and his 50 men. So that was Elijah, who we know was a servant of God, according to the current classical Bible. Now in Luke 9:54, it says this. Then the disciples, James and John, saw this. They asked, Lord, do you want us to call fire down from heaven to destroy them? Question mark. Because they also knew the story of Elijah. They knew what Elijah has done, how he asked for the fire to come down. But in verse 55, he says this, but he turned and rebuked them and said, you do not know what manner of spirit you are of. And in the New American Standard Bible, 1995, it says this, "But he turned and rebuked them and said, 'You do not know what kind of spirit you are of.'" So there's different, that's how you see that there's different spirit, different state of minds, different doctrines out there currently. Is the correct doctrines the Torah? Is the correct doctrine the gospel? Question mark. Nevertheless, we know that currently there is the authentic Bible that does not contradict, and that does not contradict itself, does not contradict the truth, and is Bibèl. And regarding the gospel and the Torah, if Loba allows it in the future, I will make teaching regarding the mistakes and contradictions in the current classical day Bible, even in the Torah and also in the so-called New Testament, so in the gospel, in the so-called good news. Because some Christian out there claim that there's no errors, there's no mistakes, they're not aware, they don't know history, they don't know how those texts came to be, what is their origin, where they come from, who has written them. Was it an angel that has written the Bible? Was it men? Was it people that were with the Spirit, that were guided? Who are those who have written those current classical day Bible? Were they mandated to write those Bible? If they were mandated by God, according to their own understanding, then there shouldn't be any mistake in them. So, and we shall also reveal, if Loba allows it, the origin of races. Why are there so many races? Black, white, and so on. Brown. Why are there many races out there? Why there are so many different kind of people? What is their origin? And we're gonna dive more also in. We're also gonna talk about ancestral Africa and how it was, and the origin of the scriptures, the text. Because that will show you, that will open your eyes and give you understanding of how the falsification came into place. So be ready for that. If Loba allows it, we are going to dive into it. Now, that was the teaching regarding the Torah and the gospel, a little bit of the differences between the two teachings, between the two books, between the two scriptures. So, all glory to Loba, the only and unique creator.